The conference hall was buzzing with energy. The scent of polished wood, fresh protein shakes, and testosterone hung in the air. Rows of chairs lined the stage, and banners displaying phrases like, "Discipline is destiny," and "Conquer yourself." "Conquer the world" loomed over the attendees. This was the biggest self-development and sports event of the year. Where the elite, the focused, the unshakable came to refine their craft. Sigma men had arrived. They moved like shadows through the crowd, men of discipline, of purpose. They didn't huddle in groups like the lesser men who needed validation. They stood apart, sharp-eyed and composed, absorbing the wisdom from the greatest minds of self-improvement. Nathan stormed. Carter adjusted the cuffs of his minimalist black blazer. He wasn't here for showboating or mindless networking. He had trained himself to extract value from every encounter, every piece of information. Beside him, Adrian Kessler, a silent but deadly force of willpower, skimmed through a book on ancient warrior philosophy. Their presence alone was enough to command the respect of those who recognized true self-mastery. The event began with a powerful keynote from Logan Royce, a former MMA champion turned philosopher-entrepreneur. He spoke of resilience, of unyielding will, of crushing distractions in pursuit of greatness. The Sigma men nodded in agreement, absorbing every word like fuel for the mind. But just as the discussion was getting deep, something happened. A sudden disturbance near the entrance. Voices shrill, heated, demanding attention. The doors burst open. A group stormed in, a battalion of neon-haired warriors, armed not with discipline, but with ideology. Feminists, not just any feminists, militant ones. They were led by a woman with a shaved head, dressed in a bright pink blazer, her expression sharp with self-righteous fury. Behind her, a sea of brightly colored hair and furious glares followed. Signs were lifted. Down with the patriarchy. Sports are oppressive. Masculinity equals toxicity. The room tensed. The Sigma men exchanged glances. Not in fear. No, never in fear, but in calm calculation. This was unexpected, but they had faced greater trials before. A feminist with thick glasses and a snarl pointed at the stage. This entire event is a disgrace. You sit here, pretending you're building each other up, but all you're doing is reinforcing outdated toxic masculinity. Nathan folded his arms, his face unreadable. "Ah," he said smoothly. "Here we go." The woman in the pink blazer took center stage, grabbing the microphone from the stunned moderator. "Men have dominated sports and success for too long. It's time we level the playing field and own more privilege." The crowd murmured, some irritated, some amused. The Sigma men, however, remained silent, studying their adversaries. A younger feminist, no older than 20, adjusted her oversized coat and jabbed a finger at Adrian. "You sit here, reading your little books about ancient warriors and grinding. Do you even know what real struggle is?" Adrian didn't blink. He simply closed his book, his ice blue eyes locking onto her, with a gaze so intense that she visibly hesitated. Then he spoke. "I do," he said. His voice was low, steady, controlled. "But I also know that playing the victim won't get you anywhere." The feminists gasped. Nathan smirked. The battle had begun. The room was electric. The feminists had expected fear, shame, hesitation, but they found none. The Sigma men sat calm, their eyes sharp, their posture unshaken. They had not come to argue, yet here they were, challenged in their own domain. The woman in the pink blazer, still gripping the microphone, sneered. "Of course, you wouldn't understand. Men like you never do. You think discipline and hard work are everything. But have you ever considered that success is built on privilege? That the systems you worship were built to keep women down?" Nathan Carter let out a slow breath. His fingers tapped the armrest of his chair, methodical, patient. He had studied debate. He had studied power. He had prepared for moments like this. Adrian Kessler leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Privilege?" he said, his voice a quiet contrast to the woman's fury. "Explain it to me." The feminist puffed up as if she had just been given an easy target. "Men have always had it easier. More opportunities. Higher wages. You don't have to worry about balancing careers and children. You." Adrian held up a hand. Stop. The single word sliced through her rant like a blade. You're repeating slogans, he said, his voice as cold as steel. I asked for an explanation, not emotion. The crowd stirred. Some leaned forward, intrigued. Others, including a few of the feminists, looked uncomfortable. Pink Blazer scoffed. Oh, please. You want facts? Let's talk about the gender wage gap. Nathan interjected, his voice smooth. The one that doesn't take into account career choices, hours worked, risk tolerance, or negotiation skills. He tilted his head. That wage gap. The feminist's mouth opened, then closed. It's still real, she snapped. Nathan nodded. Sure, in the same way that statistics can be manipulated to look real. A murmur rippled through the audience. The Sigma men remained composed. They weren't angry. They weren't emotional. And that was infuriating to their opponents. A younger feminist stepped forward, her hands balled into fists. Okay, fine. Let's talk about sports. Men have biological advantages. That's why they dominate. You talk about discipline, but you were born with superior muscles and testosterone. It's unfair. Adrian chuckled, a rare moment of amusement flickering across his face. You're admitting biological differences now? That's new. The girl faltered. Well, I mean, you can't have it both ways, Nathan said coolly. Either gender is a social construct, or men and women are biologically different. Which is it? Silence. Pink Blazer, clench your jaw. That doesn't change the oppression women have faced for centuries. You men had everything handed to you. You never had to fight for a thing. Nathan's face darkened slightly, his smirk vanishing. You know nothing about my fight, he said, his voice steady but sharp. You assume because I'm a man, I had an easy path. That I didn't have to grind every single day to get where I am. He leaned forward, locking eyes with her. I built myself, he said. Not society. Not privilege. Not excuses. And the moment you stop blaming the world for your failures is the moment you might actually start winning. Pink Blazer was breathing heavily now. She looked around, expecting her fellow feminists to rally, but some of them hesitated. Doubt, a crack in the armor. The battle was far from over, but the Sigma men had landed the first blow. The air in the conference hall was thick with unspoken tension. The feminists had expected resistance, but not like this. Not this calm, calculated dismantling of their points. They had come prepared to shout down insecure men grasping at outdated ideals. Instead, they faced men who did not flinch, who did not beg for approval, who met their words with logic, facts, and unshakable composure. And that was infuriating. Pink Blazer's grip tightened around the microphone, her face red with frustration. This is exactly why we came here, she spat. Men like you think that just because you work hard, you earned everything, but don't you see? The system was already built for you. Nathan Carter sighed, rubbing his temple. Again with the system. His voice was measured, almost bored. Do you even hear yourself? You're standing in front of a room full of men who built themselves from nothing. Men who sacrificed sleep, comfort, and easy pleasures to become stronger, smarter, and more disciplined. He gestured to the audience. Look around. Do these men look privileged to you? Do they look like they had anything handed to them? The crowd murmured, some nodding, others watching in silent approval. Pink Blazer faltered, but quickly found another angle. But that's the problem. You act like hard work is the only answer. What about women who work just as hard but still get left behind? You! Adrian Kessler cut in, his voice low, sharp. Then they didn't work hard enough. Silence. The feminists froze. Pink Blazer blinked. WH what? Adrian's gaze was piercing. The world doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your gender. It cares about results. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. If someone, man or woman, gets left behind, it's because they didn't push far enough. They didn't outwork the competition. That's how life works. Pink Blazer's lip curled. Oh, that's easy for you to say as a man. Adrian smirked. Serena Williams is a woman. Do you think she cries about the unfair system when she trains? Do you think she whines about oppression when she crushes her competition? More murmurs from the audience. Pink Blazer's mouth opened, but no words came out. Another feminist, a younger one with purple hair, stepped forward. Okay, fine. Maybe some women succeed, but what about the pressure put on women? To look perfect? To be mothers and workers at the same time? You men don't have to deal with that. Nathan folded his arms. Pressure? He let the word hang in the air for a moment before chuckling. You think men don't deal with pressure? He stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate, commanding. His presence loomed over the feminists now. You think men don't wake up every single day knowing that no one is coming to save them? That if they fail, no one will care? That if they can't provide, can't produce, can't be strong, they are worthless in the eyes of society? Pink Blazer took an involuntary step back. Men don't get to complain about pressure, Nathan continued, his voice sharp. We don't get sympathy. If a man is weak, he's ignored. If he fails, he's laughed at. If he breaks down, he's told to man up. His gaze swept over feminists, locking onto each of them. So don't stand there and act like women are the only ones who struggle. The crowd was silent. Even some of the feminists looked uncertain now. A few exchanged glances, doubt creeping into their eyes. Nathan sat back down, exhaling. The difference between us? He gestured between them. When men struggle, we don't blame the world. We get stronger. A deep murmur rippled through the audience. Some men nodded. A few even clapped. The feminists weren't just losing the argument. They were losing their own conviction. But Pink Blazer wasn't done yet. She still had one last card to play. She gritted her teeth and pointed a shaking finger at them. Fine. You all want to talk about hard work? Then why are women still victims of assault and harassment at higher rates than men? Why are women constantly put in danger while you men sit here and talk about grinding and discipline? A murmur of approval came from her group. Pink Blazer smirked, thinking she had landed a fatal blow. But Adrian's face remained calm. Too calm. Then he spoke. And when he did, the entire room went ice cold. More men are murdered than women. Silence. Pink Blazer flinched. Adrian's voice was cold, factual. More men die in war. More men are killed in workplace accidents. More men commit suicide. More men live and die completely ignored by society. He leaned back, his eyes locked onto hers. You don't talk about that, because no one cares when men are the victims. The weight of his words suffocated the room. The feminists had no comeback. For the first time since the argument started, Pink Blazer had nothing to say. Nathan checked his watch. Are we done here? His voice was casual, as if he had just wrapped up a workout. The feminists stood there, angry, humiliated, and defeated. Some turned away, unable to meet the Sigma men's eyes. And the ones who remained, they weren't sure what they believed anymore. The conference hall was frozen in time. The feminists stood there, stunned, as the weight of Adrian's words settled into the cracks of their arguments. The Sigma men had not raged, had not shouted, had not pleaded for understanding. They had simply stood firm. And now, their adversaries wavered, not because they were forced to, but because they knew they had lost. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Pink Blazer's face was red, not just with anger, but with something deeper. Doubt. She had never lost before. Her entire life. She had spoken in echo chambers, been applauded for tearing down men who didn't know how to fight back. But these men, these Sigma men, they were different. No fear, no weakness, just unshakable truth. A voice from the back cut through the silence. A woman's voice. I. One of the younger feminists with purple hair swallowed hard, her hands clenched into fists. I mean, he's right. Every head turned toward her. Pink Blazer whipped around, eyes wide. What? The younger feminist hesitated, then took a deep breath. He's right, she repeated, quieter this time. No one talks about men's struggles. And she bit her lip, forcing herself to say the words. And I've seen women who don't work as hard as men still expect the same rewards. She caught herself, glancing at her furious peers. I don't know, she muttered, stepping back. as if trying to disappear. The feminists were cracking. Pink Blazer snapped. "Oh, so you're just going to agree with them?" she hissed, rounding on the younger girl. "You're just going to betray everything we stand for?" The girl flinched. I don't know. She looked at the Sigma men, then back at Pink Blazer. "I just think they're making some good points, and maybe we should—" "No." Pink Blazer's voice shook with rage. "You don't listen to men like them. You don't consider what they say. That's how they win." But the damage was done. The younger feminist had already started questioning, and that doubt it spread. One by one, the other feminists shifted uncomfortably. Their eyes darted around the room, seeking certainty, but they found none. The Sigma men remained calm, unbothered. They had nothing to prove, and that was the real victory. Nathan Carter stood, adjusting his blazer. "Let me make this easy for you," he said, looking at Pink Blazer. "You walked in here thinking you could educate us, that you could tear us down." He took a slow step forward. "But you failed, not because we shouted louder, not because we bullied you into submission. Another step, but because we never needed your approval in the first place." Pink Blazer trembled. Nathan tilted his head slightly, his voice lowering just enough to make her lean in. "And that's what really pisses you off, isn't it? Silence. Absolute, total silence." Pink Blazer's eyes darted around, desperate for support. She found none. Even her own followers wouldn't look at her. Adrian Kessler smirked. "You came to break us." He shrugged. "And now you're the ones falling apart." Pink Blazer's hands clenched into fists. She hated them, hated their confidence, their logic, their calm. But most of all, she hated that for the first time in her life, she had no comeback. Without another word, she spun on her heel and stormed toward the exit. The other feminists hesitated, then followed. The door slammed shut behind them, and just like that, it was over. The room remained silent for a moment. Then, applause. It started slow, hesitant. Then it grew. The Sigma men didn't cheer. They didn't gloat, but they nodded to each other, because they had already won. Nathan turned to Adrian. "That was fun." Adrian smirked. "I'll give them credit. They lasted longer than I thought." The conference continued. The Sigma men went back to discussing discipline, success, and personal growth. Because while the feminists had come to fight, the Sigma men had never stopped moving forward. And that's why they always win.